About Zen Mindfulness, Chapter 1. Do you live in love or fear? What is it to be Zen? To me, Zen is more than a word, and it can mean everything and nothing at the same time. Its presence can be palpable. It resides in our awareness of the world around us, in our noticing of how life flows and does what it does in completely natural ways. Whenever you stop and tune into this presence, you can feel it, like listening to the quiet after a storm, the chattering of birds in distant trees, or the stillness in between thoughts. I use Zen to describe acceptance. If I'm Zen, then I'm okay with what's happening. If I'm not Zen, then I'm emotional or resisting what is. In essence, then, Zen for me means to develop complete acceptance of all situations, emotions, and people. This can seem incredibly difficult to attain if we allow our minds to get in the way. In order to develop more acceptance and happiness in our lives, we can use our mindfulness. Mindfulness can be described as the essence of awareness within us, that place from which we can feel deeply, see things with clarity, and gain the insights which help us to follow our life journey more joyfully. We all have the capacity to be mindful. We all have the potential to be still and focus our awareness on the precise moment in which we find ourselves, beyond our perceptions and lenses of conditioning which together make us who we are. By seeing with clarity, we more clearly see what's true, rather than what is made up with our and others' imaginations and what originates from our memories. I believe that when we're born, for the most part, we're without fear. I see all humans as beings born of love, tuned to the vibration of the universe, which is love. In a miraculous moment of birth, we are coalesced from the cosmos into a soulful being, into the arms of our loving parents. From there we begin our journey of self-discovery, innocent to the ways of the world. Our spirit, our soul, is imprinted with all the essence of the stars, the planets, of sunlight, and life on earth. As beings of love, inherent basic goodness and the ability to love is our birthright. It's a jewel within us, part of our core self, and cannot be stripped from us. It's an unconditional gift of life. It's that part which shines when we're kind or compassionate to another or to ourself. We all hold the potential at any point in our lives to be in touch with this innate love and to permit ourselves to be filled with it. Innate love is the source of wisdom far beyond thought. But my parents weren't loving. My life isn't filled with love. Nobody loves me, you might protest. It's true, many people have a less than perfect start to life, with less than perfect parents, and a less than perfect journey through life, starved of love. There are hundreds of small and large ways in which love can be hidden, withheld, given conditionally, or given in ways which inflict deep and long-lasting wounds. After that perfect moment of birth, we begin a journey of growth where our innate love, our innocence, and our inner beauty are at constant risk of becoming tarnished. As a child, we learn very quickly about what is right or wrong. Our parents tell us. Others tell us. Our fun, limitless play and freedom are subsequently bounded by human rules, human fears, and we consciously or unconsciously take on those same rules and fears as unchanging truths. We may not question those rules our entire life. For a vast part of the journey, our quality of life will depend entirely on our upbringing and conditioning. In modern society, there's a need to do all the time. As adults, we lessen our unique being through our thoughts and our incessant rushing. We're always thinking of what to do next, how to fix that, how to be happier. When ruminations are sufficiently persistent, these heavy thoughts can even manifest as physical symptoms in our bodies. We can become anxious and ill through the stresses of living and surviving daily life. We often take on external fears as our own, as a result of being surrounded by the fearfulness of others. Over time, these fears can engulf and rule our days. When we find ourselves in this place, there's little room for an innate love state, our born with goodness, to function internally or outwardly. The first step to identifying how frightened you are, and we all have learned fear to varying degrees, is to identify fear-based emotions within you. Are you frequently anxious, angry, despairing, or sad? Are you lonely, depressed, or stressed? If this sounds like you, you're currently sitting at one end of the love versus fear scale. You could imagine this like a path. By moving into more of our love-based emotions such as joy, kindness, and compassion, we can walk the path in a different direction. There will be glimpses of love piercing through, the odd happy day, moments of laughter and enjoyment of life. However, these can be repressed with our thoughts, our moods, and by any circumstances which disturb ongoing contentment. Dwelling on any of these inevitably takes you further into fear, but more on this later. The aim of this book is to guide you to noticing, realizing where you are on this love scale and how you might change where you are. Awareness of yourself and your emotional state is required to bring about the change of direction you desire. By choosing to embrace this journey of Zen self-discovery, of gentle mindful awareness, the peace and happiness locked within you can be repeatedly brought to the surface, and then life can feel very different than what it might feel right now. All is change. This can be great news or bad news, dependent on what we think about it. Change in itself isn't good or bad, that's just our judgment of it. The world is constantly changing, as are we. We grow older, our bodies change, our minds also change. We don't tend to enjoy change or welcome it as the natural flow of life. We demand permanence. That is, we believe what makes us feel safe. Consider your life for a moment. What's happening right now that you're fighting against? Is it your physical or mental health? Is it the state of the world or the job you despise? Do you reach for distractions to avoid the fears in your life? Do you like yourself and your life? These are all useful questions to ask yourself to understand where you are. Because everything changes, all of these things that aren't working for you will change, whether tomorrow, next month, or in 10 years. Guaranteed you'll become a different person to who you are right now. By embracing that change, things that no longer work in your life can more readily be discarded, allowing for new possibilities to emerge. Now is the only and best time to look at your state of being. Pause to observe yourself. How are you really? What fears do you carry? They could be numerous and varied: fear of going to parties, of being alone, of eight-legged things, or of certain foods. Are you always early to appointments? Fear of being late. Do you constantly watch TV or listen to the radio when you're by yourself? Fear of boredom, loneliness. We all have patterns. It's useful to start observing them in a curious way. Please do remind yourself that this is about self-discovery, not about judging yourself. How anxious are you? How light, heavy do you feel? Heavy is walking through treacle, feeling tired all the time or mentally exhausted with little or no motivation. Light is having a skip in your step, having laughter and joy and bountiful amounts of energy. How connected do you feel in your life, your work, your community? These answers will point you to where you're currently at on the love versus fear scale. How do you feel about yourself? Do you like yourself or do you beat yourself up? Do you live with regret, longing, or addiction? Do you look in the mirror and wish you were someone else? These questions' answers can guide you on your journey. It's a snapshot of you right now. It's worth checking these questions frequently and seeing where there are changes. It's good to be honest with yourself about where you're at. Even if you're feeling deeply depressed, you will find you have better weeks than others, but you might not notice those better times if you aren't watching for them. Our moods and emotions shift constantly. The change is always there. It is of benefit to observe how you might be labeling yourself, i.e., I'm an anxious person or I'm depressed. This can only ever be partly true. You're not anxious or depressed 100% of the time. Start by noticing the gaps in your perceptions of permanence and welcome in the impermanent nature of the universe. Mindfulness is the practice of being in the present moment with our awareness, without judgment. At its heart is paying attention to what's occurring without fighting it. We can be mindful of anything if we consciously choose to be, whether it's mindfully eating breakfast, mindfully walking in nature, or mindfully focusing on our natural breathing rhythms during meditation, or as we go about our daily tasks. If we choose to mindfully eat our breakfast, we're there with our breakfast. We aren't thinking about anything else but our breakfast. Really tune in to the present moment, noticing the taste of your breakfast, the colour of the food, the textures, the smells, and so on. This simple focus can bring joy into your life straight away. How often do we not really taste our food because our mind is distracted, thinking of something else? If you have a habit of fearful, worried thoughts, then at breakfast you're probably thinking about the day ahead. Notice your thoughts. Do you look forward to the day or do you dread it? Are you pondering problems or issues that you might have to face? When we live more in fear, we'll be in our mind more, trying to fix the fears, but often entirely from our subconscious, which can mislead us and take us in directions that aren't so helpful. Without proper awareness of these thoughts, we're led on a merry dance into storylines, imagination, and judgments. When we live in fear, in this subconscious state, our emotions become stronger. Annoyance can turn to anger very quickly if we don't catch sight of our annoyance. A slight nervous tension can lead to strong, deep anxiety if we're not aware. Our emotions are trying to alert us to something that's askew, that we're not balanced and need to resolve something within us. If we ignore our emotional alerts, we'll eventually be forced by our body to take notice. Mindfulness gives us the space to notice. By recognizing our emotions when they arise in the present moment, we have a choice of how things can go next. Do we subconsciously wolf down breakfast because we don't want to be late? Or do we take our time and enjoy our breakfast fully, mindfully? The more space we give ourselves, the more mindfulness we practice, the happier we will become, and those heavier emotions will not last as long. They become fleeting, just like clouds changing in the sky. Mindfulness consists of 3 elements, with love at our center, waiting to be unearthed. The 3 elements are the present moment, awareness, and acceptance. To be truly mindful, we need all 3 elements to be in play at once, otherwise mindfulness is lost. Non-acceptance means judging the situation. This leads us to think about what's just happened, i.e., I can't believe he said that to me, or what a nightmare of a day that was. Our mind has gone into the past, therefore we lose the present moment, what's actually happening now. Our awareness is also gone, we're just in our thoughts, but not aware of them. This can also be described as being on autopilot and is our subconscious taking over. Mindful practices like eating breakfast mindfully or sitting meditations release us from the subconscious autopilot and bring our mind back to our body. We arrive home, back in the present moment. From the here and now we can identify and recognize feelings, emotions, thoughts, body aches and pains, and even gain insight, wisdom, on what the best course of action to take next is. You can practice coming back to the present moment at any time when you begin to feel a fear-based emotion. For example, when you're stood in a supermarket queue, becoming impatient, wanting to be somewhere else, You can notice this with your mindfulness and come back to your breathing. Stand there in the supermarket queue and breathe, concentrating on the in-breath and the out-breath. This brings awareness of the breath, gives us back the present moment, and we can stop judging the situation. We are just feeling our breath. If we start judging our breath, then we're in our thoughts again, mulling over what's wrong with our breath. Mindfulness gives us the ability to stop what we're doing for a moment, tune in with ourselves. It gives us the space to see, the space to breathe, the space to observe the reality of any situation. A supermarket queue is just that, people standing in a line waiting to be served. There's nothing else about it. It's not a waste of my time or a cause for my frustration. The preciousness of the present moment is all-encompassing. When we sit in the present more and more, we start developing gratitude and calmness. We become part of the flow of the universe, not struggling against its tide. We let go of events like supermarket queues, and we return once more to the realm of being, and this in turn will begin to open up our basic goodness once more. As discussed, mindfully eating can bring you back to the present moment and allow you to really experience your meal. It's a simple practice and can become quite a regular way to practice mindfulness. We all have to eat at some point. Try noticing the food as you eat. Notice the texture of it, the smell and the colour. Notice whether you're actually hungry or whether you're eating for some other reason. Is food a distraction, a craving perhaps? If it is, then it is. We don't beat ourselves up or make ourselves feel guilty for eating food, or else we're just in our heads again, not fully present, but thinking about the issues of eating. Really taste the food. If it's something you really enjoy, allow yourself to indulge. Beginning to have gratitude for our food is another wonderful practice in itself. Eat your food and notice if your mind wanders. Are you thinking about the future or the past? Have you lost the present moment? If your mind decides to start thinking, catch it, send it kindness and return to your food. Focus with awareness on your eating. Most of us as well, at some point during a day, have to walk somewhere. So why not try and do this mindfully? By a certain point in our physical development, we know very well how to walk. We no longer need to think about it for walking to happen. Upstairs, downstairs, outside, inside, our mind is freed up to think about other things as we walk. You might notice when you start practicing mindful walking that you're either rushing towards your destination or pondering what you're going to do when you get there. With mindful walking, the journey becomes another opportunity to experience the present moment. However you tend to walk, we step with the heel and the front of our foot one after another in some sequence of synchronized action which brings about movement in the direction we desire. Place your attention on the movement of each foot. Let yourself feel the ground under your feet. Are you on a carpet, grass, a muddy track? How do your footsteps sound? Heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. Look at your surroundings. A walk can be a rich experience, benefiting your sense of wellness if you allow it to. Are you seeing the clouds in the sky? Are you feeling the wind on your face? Are you listening to the birds or the sounds of the sea? Do you see trees, a landscape, a hill, buildings? Do you know where you are? Pause every so often, taking time to really look. The entire walk can become part of your mindfulness practice. See if you can feel your breath when you walk. With this step, I take an in-breath. With that step, I take an out-breath. If this becomes a regular practice for you, you'll begin to notice a change to your walks. You'll walk slower. You'll be calmer and more tuned in to your surroundings. Things you may have walked past thousands of times before suddenly have more clarity. They're sharper to your eye and might bring you moments of unexpected joy. You'll notice ever more subtle differences. You'll be more awake, more aware. This then is the point. Becoming more aware will lead to less thinking, giving space for love-based emotions, such as happiness, to bloom. Your breath is all important, not least because it keeps you alive. Everywhere you go, your breath goes with you, and so it can be a real anchor for your mindfulness training. Not sure? Breathe. Thinking too much? Breathe. Getting annoyed? Breathe. Feeling frustrated? Breathe. Breathing forms the basis of meditation. With one in-breath and out-breath, we're meditating. We're paying attention to our breathing. If you were to meditate for longer than one in-breath and out-breath, if you were to continue for as long as you could every day, you would see a difference in your whole being. You're interrupting the thinking, the non-stop, incessant mind behavior that drives us to all kinds of distraction. The volume of thoughts becomes less. The endless streams of thought are separated, allowing pauses in between. We become clearer and more settled in our heads, like the surface of a pond when it's placid and calm, not when it's choppy like an angry ocean. We begin to touch our inherent wisdom, our right action, which often isn't related to our strategic mind at all. It's more a feeling of what's right. Then our awareness takes over and keeps us safe. We're conscious. With breathing, we can be happy right here, right now. Each breath is a miracle of life. Each breath continues our existence. From this place of calm awareness, we can more easily observe and interrupt our over-practiced ego, which likes to distract us from anything which takes us away from thinking about ourselves, such as feeling our breath or noticing the clouds. The well-meaning ego is based purely on our fear-based responses, and we'll talk about it more next.